Thank you. Forgot I was wearing this mic on my ear. I feel like you can read my thoughts. Based on the last two presentations, I think that the hottest man in the world might be, there's a movie where Jeremy Strong plays Lee Harvey Oswald. The movie's technically about the surgeons doing surgery on JFK after his head got blown up, and the lead surgeon is played by Zac Efron. And I think a big part of the reason the movie didn't do well is because it was called Parkland at the worst time to call something Parkland. It also just wasn't very good. But today I want to talk a little bit about fermentation. Everyone else talked about the ways their mental health issues. I just like to sum it all up as like just being all fucked up. And I also have the best excuse for being late and sending mine in here, like on the corner over there. I sent it in. I want to blow everyone else's excuses out of the water. So I'm not really an expert on presentations, like how much information you're supposed to be. But I'm Sean. That's me. Add another picture here is not a bit. That's a legitimate mistake. I was going to do that later and I forgot. That's real. That's a real mistake. That's me at Taco Bell. It's a picture I sent my friend because she was at a social event that she asked me to come to because she didn't know anyone else, or it was just an awkward situation. I was like, oh yeah, I'm at Taco Bell. I'm going to be like 20 minutes late. And I felt pretty good about that. This next slide kind of got spoiled, but I'm technically a journalist, not a comedian, but a lot of people think I do comedy because I did this. This is the one thing I was successful at. And you'd think that because I'm a journalist, I could tell a cohesive story, but hoo boy, hold on here. So there's a few kinds of hyperfixation. There's the ones you choose and the ones you don't. So this is a story of how I tried to master fermentation. That's the ancient art of food preparation, or can be used for a lot of stuff. I learned a lot of weird facts about it and how it all ends in a trip to the emergency room and tragedy. So I first got into fermentation because I have very little in my life, and I thought a hobby would be good. And anytime I pick a new cooking method or a new technique or tool, I get obsessive with it and do only that for a while. So for example, at one point I got a sous vide circulator. That's a little thing that goes into a pot of water, and then you vacuum seal your meats, and you're able to cook them to the perfect temperature. So whenever I cooked anything, I would just Google like carrots, sous vide. Reddit. You always got to put Reddit at the end. That's how you find the best information. Or, this is a little further back, but the Instant Pot. I was really into the Instant Pot Facebook group. It was me and a bunch of moms in the Instant Pot Facebook group, and there were some like heated moments in there in the Instant Pot Facebook group. It got really intense sometimes. At one point, somebody used an offensive slur, the R word. And there was this big argument about whether or not that was okay. And then at some point, a mother just commented, "The only R word I care about is recipes." Which I appreciated her candor there. Is that what candor means? So I do all those things for a while. So fermentation, I decided to try fermenting everything. So to define fermentation, I want to go to the NOMA Guide to Fermentation. It's considered to be the Bible of fermentation by the fermentation subreddit. I have not checked this yet, but here we go. I remember one day in the early summer when our longtime forager, Ronald Rittman, I thought there would be just a better definition here, walked through the door of the hand. I'm not going to read that. Fermentation's when you put a bunch of shit in a jar and you keep it in your room for a while and it makes something new. That's what fermentation is. So, and the way it works is when microorganisms like these guys, I hope one of these isn't like a depiction of something fucked up. Like this is just like what like HIV looks like or something. But I just Googled cartoon bacteria, I think. When microorganisms are deprived of oxygen, like inside of a mason jar, they survive on carbohydrates instead. So if you ferment something sweet, they eat up the sugar, a carbohydrate, and make it less sweet. So something like pickles or kimchi ferments based on the natural bacteria on the skin. You don't need to add anything. While kombucha or sourdough require starters to get them started. A SCOBY is what they call it for kombucha. You need to get them from like a weird guy at work or something. We'll usually have one. So I turned my kitchen and a shelf in my living room into a little fermentation factory. I was just always making weird shit. I was chopping cabbage for kimchi, making tea for kombucha, and really just putting whatever in a jar to see what would happen. I did grapes once, not to make wine, like whole grapes, and they came out like carbonated. When you ate them, there was carbonation inside. It was pretty fucking sick. I kept them all in this old TNT box that I bought on Etsy. I'm such a fucking loser. Because my ginger beer was da bomb. And it was, I found myself, like, I went on vacation to visit my buddy PJ, and his name's not important, in California, and I found myself thinking, like, oh, I hope my fermentations are okay back at home. It was like I had billions of children, these microorganisms. I wanted to set up like a webcam pointed at my fermentations to make sure they were okay. I did not. One of my first big projects was making my own yogurt, which was actually pretty easy. But the fucked up thing about making your own yogurt that no one tells you is that to get it started, you need to have pre-existing yogurt. You need yogurt to make yogurt, which I turned into an inspirational hustle culture image here. And I eat a lot of yogurt. I used to eat yogurt for breakfast every single day. I used to. I didn't do it today, so I say I used to. So it made a lot of sense at the time. I convinced myself that it was economical. I would go into the grocery store and like see people buying yogurt, and I'd be like, fucking chumps buying yogurt at the store. But I was waking up at like 6 a.m. every day to get my yogurt started, and I would turn down invites to social events in the evening because I was like, well, I got to take my yogurt out of its perfect 110-degree water bath, sous vide. Those are the optimal conditions for yogurt microorganisms to go. And of course, I had to make my yogurt Greek because I'm not a fucking jackass. So you have to strain the yogurt through cheesecloth, and I was buying so much cheesecloth and straining so many things. I just generally had a lot of... That's also a real mistake and not a bit. I generally had a lot of jars and cheesecloth like a little pioneer woman. But when you strain yogurt, the leftover liquid is called whey, like the stuff they turn into protein powder. And I know this is supposed to be us knowing everything, but I have had no idea how whey has so much protein when Greek yogurt has more protein than regular yogurt. That doesn't make any sense to me. But whey is full of microorganisms, meaning that you can mix whey with like something with sugar in it, like orange juice, and it becomes fermented. It acts as a starter. So you can just mix orange juice and whey. I forgot I was in that picture. So you can mix, and so you can basically make your own orange soda, which is way healthier than my other favorite soda, which is Diet Coke. Diet Coke is not good for your microbiome, which is what the probiotics or whatever help. This is the cover of a YouTube video I did not watch about this situation. So when you drink Diet Coke, it actually affects your microbiome in a way where it makes you want to drink more Diet Coke, which makes a lot of sense because it's the bacteria are eating the aspartame or whatever, and they're telling your brain to do more so they have more to eat because they just want to live, They're just like us. They just want to be happy. It's like they're affecting your mind and making you do things for their own well-being, like The Last of Us, Pedro Pascal mentioned earlier. So fermented things are way better for your microbiome, like kimchi or whatever, or yogurt. It's just generally very good for you. So when my father was sick, I made him what I called a heart health elixir, which was fermented turmeric and beet juice, both of which are supposedly good for your heart. And according to something I Googled, when you ferment turmeric, it becomes more bioavailable, and it's good for the heart. I misspelled health there, you might notice. I sent a picture to my dad, and he told me to just erase the H, and then it says heart heal elixir, which is part of why I wanted to try to help him. But I come from a world of caring about health and natural stuff. My dad worked for a health food company. It was pretty ridiculous, so it was something that I naturally rebelled against. Like, I would never drink a Diet Coke in front of my parents, and I drink them all the time because they think aspartame is going to kill you or cause cancer. My mother always took it a little too far. She turned the Wi-Fi off at night because of... for no good reason. I was told my whole life that I was lactose intolerant, which was a lie, because she thought dairy was bad for you. But maybe they were right, because my dad turned out okay, and maybe it was the beet juice. And I'm going to try to bring this all together thematically, but I threw this together very fast because I'm an idiot and also because of my very good excuse. But in late March, my mother also got sick. She was sent to the emergency room. And this is how sometimes you choose your fixations, and sometimes your fixations are thrust upon you. That's me and my mom. That one's me. This is a picture I found on my mom's computer that was called "Me Sitting in a Box.jpg." So yeah, my parents are always not cool with doctors and traditional medicine, so when my mother had some pain in her lower back for a long time, she never went to the doctor until it got really bad, and she finally went to the emergency room. A few days later, they did MRAs or CAT scans, probably should have looked up what the difference is, I don't know, and saw that it was cancer that had spread a lot. So all that turning off the Wi-Fi didn't do much. This next part isn't too planned, but I'm going to put the tech guy in the awkward position of giving me the light when I'm talking about my mom's cancer. So, I had to go stay with my dad near the hospital in Westchester, not too far. And one of my first thoughts was, what am I going to do about all my fermentations? Because, they're going to explode. But I was also fixated on the evil of the hospital. See, it's medical costs. I'm bringing it back to what was discussed earlier. When I first got to the hospital, Montefiore in the Bronx, I asked my mom why she wasn't watching the television in her room, and she told me it's because it cost $8 a day to turn it on, and it's already in the room. The CEO of that hospital makes $13 million a year. The nurses had just gone on strike right before my mother got there. When she was transferred to a rehab facility, physical therapy, her Medicare Advantage plan run by Aetna would have kicked her out of that facility. And base Medicare was better because they wanted to save money. So when she was sick and in this rehab facility, she found this book, Back Onto the Health Beliefs. And this book claimed, it was called How to Kill Cancer, that you need to just switch to a diet of whole grains and legumes. And I had to be like, Mom, this cancer is spread to many of your organs. Eating a bunch of beans isn't the solution here. But imagine if that worked. Imagine if beans were the cure to cancer. That would be the real sticking it to pharmaceutical companies. But meanwhile, as the person in charge for medical decisions, I had to learn a lot very quickly because my dad just wasn't up to it. I had to learn the difference between a DNI, that's a do not intubate, a DNR, that's a do not resuscitate, and a DNH, that's a do not hospitalize. As an adult son, I had to sign all of those. Not gleefully, it was the only choice. And on May 5th, that's, what's today's date? That's 12 days ago, she died. When I got back to my apartment a few days later, because I hadn't been there for so long, my ginger beer had exploded. I told you it was the bomb. And I had a new obsession. My mother was a composer, a classical music composer. She didn't really have a lot of success early in her life, but she finally had some later on. So my new obsession was trying to get people to listen to her music. So I made all these radio stations, listened to all classical radio hosts sound like characters from that vampire sitcom that the queer community on Twitter really likes. They all sound like that. I also honored her humble brag for an award I won, a journalism award. And another winner of the same award that was there that night was Rachel Maddow. And imagine how that's a very hard thing to be like, damn, I can't tell my 70-year-old liberal female mother that I met Rachel Maddow. What could be more exciting? And so a few days ago, I get another call from the hospital. My dad had fallen out of bed because he didn't want to move all their stuff, so he was living on a sliver of the bed and hit his head and had bleeding in the brain. It was quite the twist. You could say Oliver Twist. Think about that for a second. But no, he was fine. Sorry for the anticlimax there. Turned out he had bleeding on the brain, but he was okay. But I want to bring it all back around to what you all came here for. Again, a little bit disjointed. But I decided to make something very healthy. I think I laid out all the ingredients here at some point, but maybe I didn't. It's easy to ferment alcohol. Everyone knows that. So I'm going to make grain alcohol. I also have some liquid caffeine that I use for making kombucha. And if I use whey for the fermentation, I'll have protein in it. So I'm going to make the first ever homemade aspartame-free Four Loko. But I said it's healthy. Every can is going to have 6 grams of protein. Protein, 6 grams, Four Loko. That's all I have. I didn't do one of those things with my social media on it, but yeah. Thanks very much.